Okay, so we are looking at IO in Haskell. So in the last class, we looked at some basic means of doing IO. So let me just go over it quickly. So you have these basic calls. So get line, okay, is of type IO string. IO means that there is a side effect. What is the side effect in this case? It is consuming a line of input, okay, and the return value is a string. So there is something that it returns, but you also have things like puts line. It puts a line of string on the output device, whatever it is the screen in this case, and that is the side effect, but there is no return value as such, okay. So so it is of type IO string arrow, because you have to put a string. So you take a string as an argument, and the return type is there is it's IO because there is side effect, but there is nothing tangible to return. So you return this thing called unit. Okay, so this thing is called unit, and there is only one value of that type, and that value is also called unit. The type is also called unit. Okay, so you have unit, the value which is of type unit, which is the type. Okay, fine. So we saw put string line, put string line will add an empty line at the beginning. Put string will not. Okay, put string of okay, whereas if I say put string line, do you see the difference? So here you're not putting any new line after that. So this diagnostic message comes immediately after, but here you have a diagnostic message that comes on the next line. Okay, you can also have a put char, which will put a single character on the screen. Okay, see, it has put a character C on the screen. Okay, so similarly you can have get char. I can just say get char. You won't see it do anything, but if I enter a character, then it will take it. I can just say C. Okay, see, the moment I type C, it is the C is what it returns. Okay, it just so happens that in GHCI it will be printed whatever it returns, but in your own program, whatever is returned, you will have to bind it to a variable name and then use it as appropriate. Okay. Okay. Then what else did we see? Put string line, get char. Okay. Then we saw that you can actually repeat actions. Okay. First of all, you can chain actions, like here do is used to do one action after the other, and in particular we are looking at how do you repeat actions. For instance, here is how you do your own version of get line by implementing it in terms of get char. Okay, so you first get a character. If the character is the new line character, which is just some ASCII code for go to the next line, then you just return the empty string, because that is where your line ends. Your line ends when the user presses an enter, which says go to the next line. Okay, then you return an empty list. Otherwise, you have already read a character, so you read more characters, and then that will be stored in C's. You return C colon C's. Okay, return is the other thing that you need to remember. Return just promotes a value of some type to value of type IO whatever. Okay, so C colon C's is a string. Return C colon C's is a of type IO string. In general, if you ask for the type of return, it will show you that it's any monad, etc., etc. You don't need to necessarily know that. Just know that IO is an instance of what you call a monad. Okay, so there are many other monads also. So you can, for instance, say return 5. It won't know what to do, but you can say return 5 list int, in which case it will return a list with the single element 5. Okay, so return is more general, but we'll just use return. Okay, we'll just use it in the context of IO. Okay, so this is the program. So it keeps reading characters till it finds a new line, and at which point it will stop. Otherwise, it will do a recursive call. See, you are doing a primitive kind of programming. You are basically having a function name, and you are calling that function recursively. Okay, this is what you are doing. And this concept can be extended. Here we are recursing till some condition is met, namely that the character you read is the new line character. Here you can repeat a thing some number of times. Here, for instance, we said that n times, all right, yeah. So n times I am saying, and then I am saying some number I am giving, and I am saying do whatever operation. This n times is not just a. So what should you do? N times of 0, repeat something 0 times, whatever action it is nothing but you don't need to do anything at all. Okay, so you just return empty, you return unit. Okay, because there is no computation to be done, there is nothing to be returned, so you just return unit. Return meaning here the return is the one that promotes unit to type IOU. Okay, otherwise what do you do? N times NA is just basically do A once and then do N times, do N minus 1 times the same. Okay, and this n times might be a confusing name. There is a better name for basic things. You have this thing called replicate, right? Yeah, so I can call this my replicate, my IO replicate. Okay, I'm just changing all this to IO. Yes, so I'm replicating it so many times, because if you normally look at it, if I say replicate, I don't know, 5 times the letter A, you will get a string with 5 A's. Okay, so similarly, I am replicating an action so many times, but of course, I will not get a list of actions. I will get the same action performed so many times. So if I load and if I say IO replicate, and I can give any complex action that I want to. So here I can say do this is what I'm doing there. If I go here, I'm saying IO replicate, do you get a line and then print the reverse of the, you get some input and you print the reverse of the input. It could be any complicated task, which I am repeating so many times. Okay.
Sir, the INP is my get line. That refers to that the input we enter that is interpreted as INP.
Yeah, the input that you enter, that is INP. You are binding it to that.
Oh,
This is
okay.
bind, I said. Yeah, my
Okay,
get
so
line of type IO string. There is some side effect, but it also produces a string as output. That string is stored in INP. If you want to think about it. Yeah.
okay. So my get line actually refers to, I mean, the input, I mean, asking for the input that is given in the
Yeah,
previous
this
line.
function, my get line is this function. It will wait for user to enter some input, some number of characters, and press enter. And then all that set of characters will be the return value of my get.
Okay.
But since it is an action with a side effect, you cannot say input equal to my get line. You have to extract the string value of my get line, and that you do by doing this left arrow.
Okay, sir, got it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this we had, so why not, I will also do this H set buffering. So then there was this H set buffering thing that I talked about, which you just need to remember that if you do this, then your behavior will all be fine. Okay, I'm doing this because I'm doing put string, not put string line here. Okay, and then I can now say what am I calling? 10 times useless I'm calling. Rather than calling it useless, I am saying 10 times reverse, let me call it. Okay, so this is my function. 10 times reverse. Not the same thing, but multiple things. So 10 times reverse, if I just say, it will say enter some input. Okay. Get out of it. Okay, so it's saying enter some input. I'll say 1, you'll get this. I'll say I'll get this 2, whatever. Yeah. Okay, so keeps on going. Okay, because it has to, you have to enter 10 useless things. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, so this is the kind of, I mean, I'm just illustrating things with illustrating stuff with some useless programs, but you can actually do, you need input output and you do a lot of useful things with input and output. I'm just illustrating it with very simple examples. Okay, fine. So we saw all this, and then finally we saw yes, this program, this main program, we could have instead just said IO replicate 100 and then the thing that follows. Okay. Yeah, I'm printing something 100 times. Okay, so this is fine. So I can actually say main and okay, it prints it 100 times. It's fine. And I called it n times originally, and then I called it IO replicate. This seems like such a common thing, right? That you want to repeat an action so many times. Actually, so there ought to be a function, built-in function for this. Yes, there is, and it's because it is so close to replicate. It is called replicate, except replicate M. It is called. It's a monadic replicate, and you have to do this. Import control.monad. Replicate M. There are two versions. There is a replicate M, there is a replicate M underscore. Okay. Replicate M underscore is what you most want to use. Okay. The return type of replicate M underscore will be just unit. Okay. Whereas replicate M will be a bunch of units. Okay. You don't want that. Replicate M underscore is what will give you this kind of behavior. So instead of saying this whole thing about 10 times reverse doing IO replicate, I could have done replicate M underscore 10. Yeah, this also works. So I can go here. Yeah, it compiles. Yes, so okay, I can do things like this. Okay, fine. So replicate is very useful. Remember that.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, somebody has a question.
Yes, sir. Can you go back to the program?
Yes. Yeah.
So here, you used A, and A stored a list of instructions as an IO.
No. Can you be a little louder, please? I can't really hear.
So you used A here. I mean, in the
A
replicate.
where? In what line number?
In IO replicate.
Yeah, right. A is the input. A is IOA. That is A. Yeah, that is an input. Yes.
Yes, sir. So it stores all of the things after do in 10 times recurse.
No. Can you please? I can't hear you clearly.
So I'm saying,
Who is talking?
so this is Romit. Is there some background noise or I don't
Yeah,
understand?
I don't know something. It all. I can only hear it very blurred. But now, yes, please go on.
Okay, so under 10 times replicate, after the do, so all the lines after do are
Yeah,
under
the
the
whole
dollar.
thing is A actually. Yeah, that is why I put a dollar here, and the whole thing enclosed in do is one action.
So, but usually dollar doesn't go through multiple lines, right?
What do you mean by dollar? It doesn't go through multiple lines.
I mean, when you use dollar, you say it goes to the end of the line.
No. I don't say that at all. Dollar is just, so this dollar will put parentheses around the next argument. Okay, and for this replicate M or for this IO replicate, there are how many arguments are there? 2 arguments, right? The first
Yes.
argument is an integer. The second argument is an action, and an action starts from do and goes till the end.
So how does it know when is the end? Like,
because
doesn't
after
it
do
put
you
the
have done
main
an indent. After do you have done an indent. It will keep
Oh.
track of this indent. Okay, till all the while till there is this indentation, it is counted as one action.
okay, so thank you.
Yeah, it is about the do. If you want to be clearer, then what you should be do is you should you can follow this notation. If you want to be really clear, you delimit the do action by this. But if you do this, I think you have to use semicolons. Yeah, there are 2 ways of writing programs. But still you have to put this thing. Yeah, I don't know if semicolons are necessary. Yeah, they are necessary. Is it clear? You might find that this is clearer in some cases. Yes?
Okay,
No,
so
you
thank
know that. Yes?
Yes, so that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this is clearer, right? So you can do it this way. Yeah, then it becomes just like your Java, C, whatever. You are delimiting the whole block by that open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Open braces and closed braces. Okay, I'll leave it at this one.
Sir?
Yes. Yes.
So could you repeat the type for replicate M and replicate M score underscore?
I'll replicate M. I'll show you. Forget the applicative M, etc., etc. Read that as IO. Okay. Int arrow, IO, A arrow, IO list A. That is the type of replicate M. But the type of replicate M underscore is what we want. Int arrow, IO, A arrow, IO unit. See, instead of M, read it as IO. So it is int arrow, IO, A arrow, IO unit. The A could be anything whatsoever.
Okay.
So you are repeating. So basically, what you are doing is you are repeating an action so many times that action might have a return value. In replicate M underscore, you are ignoring the return value. In replicate M, you are collecting all the return values in a list.
So like replicate M was where you gave it something like that LeBron James thing and it printed it 100 times.
No, that is replicate M underscore.
Oh.
I go replicate M, I said, I think. Where is it?
No, sir. No, replicate M underscore is where you allow for the user to input something, right?
No. Replicate M underscore or replicate thing does not have anything to do with user input or whatever. The user input and all is because of the do, what the do is doing. You see the point? The do block, whatever it does, that is your main thing. Here, so let me. Do you see the point? Replicate M underscore I am using, but what is the action doing? The action is asking for the user input. Do you see?
Yeah, but I didn't get the difference between replicate M underscore and replicate M.
Okay. I'll tell you. Okay. 1 second. I'll modify the program to make it replicate M, and you'll see what happens. Yes. Okay. If I make it replicate M, and I can also go here and add replicate M. Okay. If I do this, then first of all, the type won't match. Why? Because it is saying IO unit. If I erase this, then I'll know what the type is. It will suggest a type. See, it is IO list unit. Okay, and okay, and if I go here and if I save this, if I go here, do this thing, and if I do the 10 times whatever. See, look at the last line. There is a return value as well. These things are all the side effects. Reversing and printing on the screen, etc. is all a side effect. But there is a return value as well. What is the return value in every case? Just unit. Okay, and replicate M will collect all the return values and put it as a list. Okay, whereas replicate M underscore will ignore the results of the individual actions. Is it clear?
Okay, sir. Yeah, I'll think about it.
Yeah. One more thing, if you recall, we last time we did this, right? Okay, if you want to generate a bunch of random numbers, then if you want to generate a random number, then random RIO is what you use. And the way you use it is to say that random RIO, if I just check what its type is IO int. Okay.
Yeah, sir.
And it is available in system.random. Okay. So I can type of random RIO. Yes. So forget all this nonsense. This M is IO. Okay. So IO A. Okay. And I basically want an integer. You can have IO bool, you can have IO whatever you want. Okay. IO bool, IO char, you can have whatever you want. And this A comma A is giving you the lower bound and upper bound. Okay. So I can come back here and say and I want something between these two limits. I want an integer. Lower bound and upper bound. LU. Okay. Between L and U inclusive, it will give me a number. Okay. Arrow. Okay. So that's a function. So I can come here and ask random int. And I have to give a value. Let me say 0, 100. Yeah, it gives me a random integer. Okay. Each time I try, it will give me a different random integer. Yes. But now let's say I want a list of random integers. What do I do? Here,
Use replicate.
Exactly, replicate M. And I don't use replicate M underscore. Okay. Replicate M will, there is a return value for each action. It will collect all the return values. Okay. That is what you use replicate M for. Here I'll take another integer parameter. Sorry. Let me not modify this thing. Okay, so instead of random int, I'll call it rand int list. And I'll take one more parameter, which is the size. Then I'll produce a list of integers. Okay, and the way I do it is replicate M so many times this action. Yes, so that will actually give me a list of integers, and here I have to use replicate m because the return value of each individual action is int. There is a return type here which is int. So replicate m will collect all the return values while doing the side effect full thing. Whereas if you come to an action whose type is IO unit, then that unit is not really doing anything useful, right? Unit is no information at all. Okay, the return value is, there is a return value there which is actually unit, but you can't use it anywhere. Okay, so if you did replicate m, then it will store all those units, each of those units in a list, and it will produce a list of units. You see the point?
So what would happen if we use replicate m underscore here? Like
that is a very good point. Nothing. It will firstly violate. It will firstly say type doesn't check. See here, there is some underline. VS Code will tell, oh, type doesn't match, because the output type ought to be but let's say you don't give a type here at all. The output type ought to be IO unit, but let's say you don't give any type at all and ignore the type suggestions that this gives. Okay, let's go here and let's this thing rand int list, let us say.
oh, it doesn't like
produce anything, because it is not.
oh,
No.
so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
It doesn't print, you're saying, like it won't print it.
No. That is because it's a function. So I have to say rand int list size. I have to give rand int list 100, and each element is between 0 and 200. It doesn't return anything at all.
Because it doesn't store the.
Exactly, it doesn't store anything anywhere because you said rand replicate m underscore.
Okay.
The output is ignored, really. Yeah, that is why, that is the difference between replicate m underscore and replicate m. So if you want these kind of things, you should use replicate m. Whereas if you want, whereas in this case, if I did a replicate m, then I will unnecessarily have a list of units. What am I going to do with a list of unit values? Yeah, so that is why you use replicate m underscore. Yes. Is this clear now?
Yeah.
So replicate and replicate m and replicate m underscore. These are not on the slides, but it's very useful. I have told you already. Yes. So okay. So rand int list, now I can actually do if I do this, then I can do rand int list. I'll get a random list. Yes. So along the way, I've also shown you how to use randomness for certain things that you will test, etc., etc. Suppose you want to test your sorting algorithm, then you can use a random this thing and try to test the sort. Okay. So
yeah, we can apply this to like randomize the quick sorting so that the worst case complexity, like when it is already sorted.
once more.
Yeah,
Right. So if you want to generally test your quicksort function, etc., manually you can't enter any random lists. You can only do fully sorted in ascending order or in descending order. I mean, because we are too lazy, we can't keep writing 100 numbers. So this is a quick way of using this to check whatever you want. Okay, good, very good. So this is fine. So replicate m and replicate m underscore. Let me go to the slides. Let's see, there are useful things in the slides. Okay. So just to summarize whatever we have seen so far, actions are all of type like this: IoT1, T1 arrow, IoT2, T1 arrow, T2 arrow, IoT3, etc., etc. As opposed to pure functions, the type of pure functions do not involve IO, whereas the type of these actions involve IO. Actions have side effects like reading input from user, printing output to screen, etc., etc. So actions and pure functions can be embedded inside inside other actions. Okay, but actions cannot be embedded inside pure actions. If you embed an action inside something, then that also has to have type IO. So you're sort of tainting all the things by you're marking anything that potentially has a side effect or some of whose components have side effects by IO. Okay. And as we saw, actions can be chained inside a do block like this. Here the actions are executed in order, one after the other. So there can be recursive calls to big act inside the do block. Okay, that is always possible. So the return type of big act is the return type of the last action. That is important. Okay, act n. Okay, and the main is a distinguished action where computation begins. All standalone programs that you compile using GHC and run as an executable from the command line, they should have a main action. Otherwise, it will not compile. And yes, oftentimes you need to, there are actions whose return types will be IO string, IO int, etc., etc. Those actions, you can extract the values that are the return values by using left arrow. Okay. And finally, we use return. Return, unfortunate choice of terminology here. Return, just you can read in your mind's eye, you can think of return as promote. Okay. If you have just a unit, it will promote it to something of type IO unit or list unit, etc., etc. Okay. Okay. And then we have more actions like print, putchar, getLine, etc., etc. The print is nothing but putStringLine dot show. You first convert it to string and then you put the string on the screen. Okay, putStringLine works on strings. Print works on anything that is showable. Okay, right. So putchar, getLine, etc., etc. I think Bijayan asked a question last time. GetLine will only read a string. What if you want to read an integer? Okay, we'll come to that in a minute. So functions versus actions and so on. Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, so this is important. In Haskell, a pure function will not have this type IO attached to it, but an action will always have an IO occurring somewhere in the type. That itself will tell you that it is a that it is something which with the side effect. Okay. Whereas in a language like C or Java or whatever, you will both these things are just int arrow int, and you have to go and read the function to figure out whether there are side effects or not. Okay. Side effects could be writing a global variable, etc., etc., etc. Okay, or printing out something. Yeah, there is no distinction in other languages. There is a distinction in Haskell, and that is important. Okay. Yes. So the functions we've seen till now, the ones that are free of side effects, are called pure functions. So their type gives all the information we need about them, mostly, meaning that there are no side effects. Really, okay. So an important consequence is this: that invoking a function on the same arguments with the same, invoking the same function on the same arguments will always yield the same result. Okay. If I have factorial as a function, if I do factorial 5 once, and if 2 days later I do factorial 5 again, I'll get the same value, right? The value won't change. Okay. But if it is a C program or a Java program, you don't know, because maybe not only do you return factorial as an integer, but you also print out something. You will say, maybe you will print out something silly as the factorial program computed at this point of time on this date is this. Okay, and that itself is a change. Yes. Yeah, and the order of evaluation of this is fine. The presence of IO in the type indicates that actions potentially have side effects. So these are not pure functions, and which means that the external state is changed, and order of computation is important. I first get a line and then I put it out. Okay, not that I cannot put the line before I get the line. You see, right? I first print hello and then I print world. I don't print world first and then hello. Okay, the order matters. Yes. So now when it comes to actions, performing the same action on the same arguments twice might have different results. For instance, here I have a greet user function which takes a string as argument, and it doesn't return any value of significance, but it has side effects. It says, please enter your name. You enter the name, and then it says hi, and it says your name, and then it gives you the greeting. Okay. What will happen if I say greet user welcome? Welcome is my greeting message, let us say. What will happen if I do this twice? Will the behavior be the same or will it be different?
Sir, you can enter two different names then.
Exactly. Therefore, it will be different. That's all. The outputs will be different in general. Because first time I called it, second time Swaminathan called it, third time Vijayan called it. Okay. Then Srimati calls it. Everybody gives their name. So this put string line message will be different. Okay. Even though as a function name, this is the same function, that is the same argument. Okay. If there were no IO here, then of course greet user welcome will always give the same result, no matter how often it is called. And Haskell can actually use this by maybe storing it once and you not even computing it many times. Just dynamic programming and all we saw, which was that you don't do multiple calls again and again. You just store the value once, compute it, and then use it. Why was that possible? Because it was possible because of this property of pure functions, that even though you call the same function multiple times with the same argument, the results will always be the same. Okay. Whereas with IO actions, it won't be the same. Okay. It need not be the same. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Final abstract slide here. The Haskell type system allows us to combine pure functions and actions in a safe manner. Safe being that if you embed an IO action inside a larger thing, the larger thing should also be called an IO action. Okay, the type should indicate that. Otherwise, Haskell will fail. The type checking in Haskell will fail. That way, Haskell clearly separates pure functions from actions. Okay. Okay. So now let's get to this thing. Vijayan asked this question, and this is important. You oftentimes you want to read not just a string but some other data type, and there the important thing there is read line. Okay, though it is called read ln, not read line. Okay, get line, read ln. Okay, but this read ln can read any value of any type as long as that type is readable. Okay, this show and read are opposite types. Show is all types that can be printed on screen. Read is all type that can be parsed in some sense. Okay, and this includes things like integer, double, character, boolean, because you can read a character and recognize that it is a character, but also pairs of characters, list of characters, etc., etc. Okay, all basic types, int, bool, char, etc., are instances of read. Basic type constructors also preserve readability. So you have int list, int bool, char, etc., etc., are also instances of read. Okay, so if you let's go here, you can say instead of asking who is your favorite player, by now you know, enter a random number again. And then the way I should do it is n is read ln, but read ln can read your input and interpret it to be of any type. So you need to tell what type it should be interpreted as. Okay, because after all, on the keyboard entry that the user gives is a bunch of ASCII characters. They can be interpreted to be anything. So you have to tell what should this input be interpreted as. Okay, so therefore you have to say that, oh, this read ln I want it to be of type IO int. Okay, so this is the way to use read ln. You say read ln and then put this double colon and say what the type you want to be. Okay, and now I am putting this number n times. Yeah, it shouldn't be put string line. I should say show. Not show, print. Or put string line. It is giving this thing saying instead you can say print. Okay, print. Is this main clear? And while you are at it, I'll also change this to replicate. Yes, so this is how you use read line. So let's, now I am asking enter a random number. I'll say 225. That's going. Maybe I should change the number so that you know. 5, 5. Okay, I'm entering some random number that's being printed for. Yeah. So it's interpreting it as a number. But recall that if you say I want to read it as a number, but if you go and write ABC, it will give an error. So that's a problem always. Because there is no parse for ABC as a number. It cannot read ABC and interpret it as a number. Okay. Because what is happening? Even though I typed a number, it is a string actually. It is a string with 3 characters. The character 2, the character 2, and the character 5. Internally, it is running some algorithm to convert from character list to number. We saw this, right? That fold L of 10 times accumulator into 2 digit plus. So you will do digit to int, etc., etc. You will do all kinds of things. There are all those. It's actually executing a function like that to translate a string to an integer, and it should actually be a string of numerical digits. Otherwise, it can't interpret it to be some system. You can also try giving 225A. That's a bus number perhaps, and even that will have no parse. And what will happen if you give things like 225 space A? So you need to be careful when you say read line. There is always possibility of error if you give the wrong kind of. Okay, but notice that you have leeway here. You can actually say, instead of saying n read line this thing, you can actually read a list of numbers itself. You can say n's is IO list int. And then you can go here and you're saying print n's. Okay, now I'll ask main. Oh, I shouldn't be enter a bunch of random numbers. I should say. I want to interpret it as a list of integers. So what I should do is I should enter it as a list. Oh, and that list is being printed 5 times. I could do more. I could do saner things with the list. Instead of printing it 5 times, I can just say print sort of the list. But I mean, it will say sort not defined. I'll go and so it's asking me some bunch of numbers. This is the irritating thing. I did a mistake and then now I have to enter the whole thing again. Because I put 2 right square brackets, it won't parse it properly. But typically you will be reading one value. That's all. You won't be reading a list, etc. Okay? But it's irritating to write this as a list, right? So what I want to now do is ask the user to enter one number on a line and then collect it together as a list. How do I do that? Yes, so I'll do, yeah, that's what I want to do. So rather than read a list, 1 on each line, I'll say. How do I end? I should end this whole thing by saying, okay, this is what I want to do. Okay. Right. So here is, I want to read I want to read one number from each line and put them all together as a list. Okay, this is what I want to do. Yes, and what I want to do is I want to enter a bunch of numbers, one on each line. I'll write some instructions to begin with. Enter a bunch of numbers, one on each line. End with a negative number. Okay, this is what I want to say. Okay, now what I'm doing is, what I'll say is ns read int list. That is my function that I will write now in a bit, and then I will print the sorted version of the list. The sorted list is I'm sorry about the lots of noises these days around the house. I don't know how much gets carried over on the Zoom call. There is some construction happening, something happening in the next house, all sorts of things. I'm sorry about that. So I'll print out what the list itself is, and then I'll also print out what the sorted version of the list is. Okay, so this is done. Now I need to write the code for read int list. Remember that if the number is negative, I should immediately stop. Otherwise, I should build a list. Okay, the type is IO list int. Okay, so read int. So what is the first thing you will do? You will read a number from the user. You will ask, you are waiting for the user to enter a number. You will read a number. So n is read line IO int. Okay. If it is negative, you should stop. So what do you do? If n is less than 0, then what do? You stop, but there is nothing to say stop. Stop. It will stop once it comes to the end, unless you do a recursive call or whatever. But you have a return value to give. Okay. The return value is that n should be at this point. The return value is what I have. Suppose the very first thing is a negative number. Then what is the list that you return?
Empty list.
Yes. So you should say return empty list. Return here means promote empty list to something of type IO list. Okay. That is what. Okay. Else what do you do? Else read int list again, and that is some n's. You do it as long as you get back a list, and then you return n:\n. It's exactly like getLine, no difference at all. Okay, except in getLine you did a getChar. Here you are doing a readLine, readLN IO. So why is there an error here? Is this code clear? It's exactly like here. Instead of checking if C is new line, you are checking if n is less than 0. There you returned empty string. Here you are return this thing. Okay? Else you do this whole thing. So you have now therefore created you're returning a list now. Okay, you're doing IO action, getting input from the user, and you're building it as a list, and you're returning it. So let us see how this works. So let me go here and yeah, I'm given some instructions. So I'll moment you say -1, the input enter the list that is read is 22, 33, 5, 98. See in order 21, 4, 22, 3, 0. The sorted version is 0, 3, 4, 5, 21, 22, 23. Right? So here is how you read a bunch of numbers, put them into a list, and then do whatever with that list. Okay. Okay, great. So this is one thing. Any questions on this? Yes, good. So okay.
Sir, can you explain how Haskell will evaluate such things?
Sorry, very sorry. Can you repeat, please?
Sir, can you explain how Haskell evaluates such programs?
Meaning, what do you mean by how Haskell evaluates?
Like the order, Haskell evaluates lazily, right?
Yeah. But the point is this: now, whenever you try, it will still be lazy. But when you try to extract a value, the action will happen. The bind is the crucial thing. You're trying to extract the value n from something, then the action will actually be performed.
So in the case of return,
Return is not return. No, return is just promoting something from that, some internal representation. You don't need to worry. Return might not even change anything to the data value. It is just changing the type.
oh, okay, sir.
Return is not control return. Sorry. Okay, it's an unfortunate choice of keyword here. Return is not returning control to the caller. Return just means promote something from type A to type IOA. That's all.
But NS is used there, right? So
No, n is the what?
NS is used there, right? So first,
No, sorry. Can you repeat, please? I'm very sorry.
no, sir, just
I
ignore.
see here.
No,
N is the what? Did you ask?
no, sir, I was just saying that NS is used in that expression.
N is
NS,
NS.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. No. What is your question? Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you write it on the chat, please? Sorry.
No, sir, ignore it, sir. It's okay.
No, please. If it's,
No, let me think about it.
yeah, okay.
It's okay.
I'm sorry because I mean some problem here. I can hear certain things very loudly, certain things I can't hear that clearly, and there is some work constantly going on in the next house. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, but Milan, do you understand this? What this program does at least? Forget how
Yes, sir, yes.
Haskell does it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, can I ask another question?
Yes, Swaminathan. Is
No,
it
sir, this is
Swaminathan or
Romit.
yes, please ask.
Can you hear properly?
Yes, I can hear properly. Yes.
So okay, in readline you used readline :: IO8.
Right. I did that. Yes.
Can you do that with normal functions? I mean,
Can I do that with double functions?
It's normal pure functions. I mean, the input type was A, but somehow you changed it into int.
No. I didn't. The input type is not A. The input type is anything whatsoever you want it to be. Any A you want it to be.
Yes, so you
have to
put it as
specify
int. So you specified int.
Yeah. I
So
could
can
have
you do
specified
that
it
with
as
normal?
double, and I could have done the same thing. I could. I'll show you. I can specify it as double. I can do it as double here, even though I just enter the same old integers. Yeah, so I can just say 22, 33, 5, -1. Yeah, it will automatically interpret it as double. Okay, so your
Okay,
question is?
So I was saying, how can you do that with normal functions? Because usually the type is given by the compiler.
Yeah, usually the type is inferred, but there are cases when you cannot. Yes, you can do it for normal functions also. Yes, that is your. Can you put a colon and put the type for
Yes.
some function call you are asking? Yes, you can do that. Okay,
Okay.
even for normal calls. Okay. Yeah, that is the answer. Yes. Okay, even without IO, it doesn't have anything to do with IO. There are times when you will be forced to just specify it like that yourself, and you will do it. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let me revert to this to int. Okay, so this is one thing. Yes. Now, what if you want to signal the end of the input by some other means? I mean, this is unsatisfactory because this means that in your list of integers, negative numbers means it will immediately stop. It will not even. Then this means that your list will not even be allowed to contain negative numbers. You want it to signal by other means. Typically, you will signal it by some control D or whatever, some way by which your thing will end. Okay. For that, you do this. Okay. So EOF is another condition that you can use. I'm going to put up all this program there. The slides are also there. Some of these are like mantras. You have to just use them without really. EOF means has end of file been reached. Okay. So that is your exit condition. If exit condition is true, then you do return empty list. Else you do whatever you did earlier. Okay, so this is something that you can do. So let me just modify my program by saying not only all these things, I'll also do import system.io specifically for, oh, I already have system.io. What I want to add now is, what did I say? Is EOF. So then I can modify this by saying, rather than say end with negative number, that's a version which I'll just save. Okay, this is the new, this is the, oh, rather the saved thing can do that. Yes. So now I need to modify the read int list. Okay. So rather than talking about negative numbers, okay. So even before reading a number, so I'm saying exit condition is EOF. If exit condition holds, ECOF is again an action with a side effect. It will do something at the system level and detect whether the end of file has been reached or not, end of input has been reached or not. That's a Boolean value. So you can just use if exit condition. And then you are saying then exit condition is not a keyword. It is just some name that I'm using. Okay. If exit condition holds, then return empty list, else yeah, then read, then n is where you read one number, n's are your further read int list, and then you are just returning encoders. Okay, so this is a little more seamless. You are just, if exit condition has been reached, I don't know what the exit condition is, end of file has been reached. Okay, we'll figure out what it is in a minute. This condition works. Let's come back here. You know, it is just saying enter a bunch of numbers, one on each line. So now I can do 32, 33, 44, 0, 16, 66. I can also enter negative numbers. Minus 21, minus 33, 45. And now I want to end Control C. Something. I don't remember now how exactly to end this thing. Control D I should try. Control D doesn't work. Yeah. So you might wonder what the end of file is. Actually, there is a use for it. Okay. No, it is not. I mean, once again, it is irritating to have to write this bunch of numbers every time, right? Rather, the way you will use it is to enter these numbers in a file, and your program will read from that file. Okay, that is the more typical usage. So if you look at that, so let us say vi lect20.input. This is the file I want, and I want to just give a bunch of numbers here: 22, 33, 44, minus 2, 56, 10, 12. And let's just end with this. Okay. And now, let us say you do GHC lect20. And if you just try to run this lect20, just like we did main there, it will ask you to enter numbers, etc., etc., which is not a very useful thing. Right, which is a useful thing. So now it will ask you to enter a bunch of numbers: 22, 33, 44. No. I need to figure out what this end of file is. Control D. Okay, right. So not inside GHCI, but outside. At least on the Mac, it is Control D. On Windows, you need to figure out what it is on the, what is the equivalent of Control D on Windows. But do you see what is happening here? Yeah, I entered a bunch of numbers, and at some point of time, rather than entering a negative number or whatever, I did Control D. That signifies that input has ended. Okay, or I could be reading from a file, and the way to read from a file is to at the operating system level, at the shell level, to do an input redirection. So lect20.in. So I should. Here it ends when there is nothing on a line. Yes. Do you see that? So I should remove my initial prompt also, but it's fine if I am reading from a file. So the list itself is this 22, 33, 44, whatever. It is all those numbers that are written in that lect20.in in order. And then the sorted list is being produced. Is it clear how eCOF can be used? Because this is how you do it when you do it from the terminal. Okay, not from inside GHCI. You do Control D and that will signify that input has ended. Yeah, when you do it this way. Or if you are reading inputs from a file, a blank line, remember that there is a difference between, look at this here. So this tilde indicates that there is nothing on the line. Okay, and I can't even go below this line. So I am going up arrow, down arrow. You cannot even go below. If instead inadvertently you put a empty line here, then that will not count. That is not Control D. Okay, it has to be that your input, the last line is there, and after that there shouldn't be anything. Okay, that is how you read from these things. Okay, let's get back to the slides. So that is how you use eCOF. eCOF returns true when end of file is reached or Control D is entered by the user. Okay, good. So we have made enough progress. Okay, finally, even this might be a little too primitive for your tastes because you are looping explicitly. Okay, one way to do it is to say like for loops, etc., etc. in other languages. You can say forever do something forever. Okay, That is a nice construct. For that, you should import control.monad, which we might already have imported. So again, you don't need to worry about remembering all these things. When I ask you to write programs, whatever is useful, you look at my slides, you look at these programs that I'll upload for reference, and you can import those library functions. Okay, so import this thing. I want to also import forever. Okay? And forever is very useful because instead of saying this read int list, instead of doing so instead of recursively calling this, again I'm doing this ns is read int list, etc., right? Instead I can say forever keep reading numbers. That's all. Okay, this thing will be okay. And if you want to exit the loop, you should say exit successfully exit the loop or whatever. Exit and signal success rather than signaling failure. Okay, and check when to exit using EasyOF. Okay, this is the thing. So 1 second. Okay, so what more do I do? System.exit. Okay. Okay, exit success. Okay, so I've done all this. So let me go back to my read int list. Let me copy this so that this version stays commented. Okay, so now the new read int list, what it will do is instead of doing recursive calls, it will be like this. It will say forever do something. Okay, it will start with forever. Forever is something that will take an action, and it's just like replicate m. Replicate m takes an action as input and repeats it so many times as given by the number. Forever is like take an action as argument and repeat it infinitely many times. Okay, except that there are some other aspects of Haskell that tell you how to exit the forever, because you need a way to exit, right? So forever do this. Exit condition is EOF. If exit condition holds, then exit success. Okay, else. Okay, so here I don't want to okay, so I mean there are only certain cases for which you can use your forever. So if you want to do your build a list by reading many lines of input, you have to do it in this type. Okay, that I have commented out, because there you have to make a recursive call. You read the current number, make a recursive call, read the next thing, and you have to combine the two. Okay, that is what you have to do. Whereas here there is no forever. You are repeating something forever, and there is no connection between this and the next, because you are not explicitly writing. There is no connection between one iteration of the loop and the next, because you are not explicitly writing it as a recursion. For instance, here is a different program. What I am doing here is that I'll read a list, or I'll read a number, and I will print twice of that number. Print the square of the number. Okay, this is all I want. Okay, then this read list, int list type is not this. No. So this is not really reading an integer list, it's something else. I'll say forever example. That is all this is. Okay, nothing more. Okay, what is this? Okay, so now I can actually go to GHC and import. Oh, why do we say when? Okay, so this is my forever example. I'll go here. Okay, so this is the thing. I keep on writing some numbers. It will 3, it will print 9, 5, it will print 22, 100, minus 22. Okay, I do control D. It won't work here. That is the problem. Okay, of course, but you know how to exit. Okay, so you have to do control D and exit. Okay, but you see how forever works. If you give the exit condition, it will get out. Okay. Finally, there is one way of doing this thing, which is the final thing called interact. Okay, interact is a very nice way of doing input output. Okay, how much time do I have? I'll use 10 minutes and then that will finish this. You don't need to necessarily use interact in whatever exercises I give you or whatever. I'm just telling you that there are all these means. Forever is something that it is good to know. Otherwise, you always know how to do loop inside for input output programs by using recursion. Okay. After that, there is something called interact, which is a very useful thing. The type is a little strange. It takes a function as argument, and the function will always be string arrow string. Okay, and there is no significant output, so it's unit, but it has side effects, so it is IO unit. Okay, that is what interact is. What does it do? That is the most interesting. Interact F applies F, which is a string function, to the entire input. That is the point. It will consider the input as a whole and apply the function F on it. Okay, so that is a very nice thing. But Haskell is lazy. Therefore, it will, if the function is such that you can apply it as soon as one element of the input is present, then it will apply it. Okay, it won't wait for you to finish the whole input and then apply it. Okay, so typically your function F will split the input into each line, apply something on each line, and then put all those lines back together. Okay, if your function is like that, then each line is a unit that you can process. So Haskell will process as soon as you input a line. It will process that line and then it will ask for the next line. Okay, that is because Haskell is lazy. It won't wait for you to print to give all the input lines before it does the processing. Okay, so the only portion of the input that is needed to produce a line of output is consumed. Okay, that's all that is consumed. It doesn't wait for the user to provide the whole input. It is enough if the user provides a line. And yeah, okay, this is a truly interactive program. Okay, truly interactive means of doing IO. It will wait for a line, it will process the line, print it out, then wait for the next line, etc. Even though the way you use it is to just specify one function that conceptually works on the entire input as a whole. Okay. Typically, F is a function that processes one line of input. Therefore, any typical F that you use along with interact will use the two functions lines and unlines. Okay, lines is a function that will take a string and produce a list of strings. Okay, or take a list and produce a list of lists. The way it will produce is whenever in fact, it will take a string and produce a list of strings. It will cut out it will split the string wherever it sees the new line character. Okay. So if your input is 1 new line character, 2 new line character, 3, the output will have 3 strings. Okay. A list of 3 strings. On the other hand, unlines is the reverse. If you say unlines and provide 3 strings like this, a list of 3 strings like this, it will produce 1 string which is like this. Yeah. So that is lines and unlines. And your typical use of interact will always look like this. That your f will be a function that applies to each line. Okay. You will consider your whole input, split it into lines, map f on every one of those lines, finally put all those output lines together. Okay. So that is this unlines.mapf.lines is a function whose type is string arrow string. Okay. So if you just say interact this, and if your f is a function that processes each line appropriately, then that is all. For instance, here is a program that I will write. Suppose I want to write a program which does something silly like read each line and reverse each line, let us say. Then all I need to do it is rev each line. Interact using the function that does unlines dot map reverse dot lines. That's all. Oh, interact, I don't need to do anything. Oh, amazingly, for interact, I don't seem to need to do any import, etc. It's available with the prelude. Okay, you see how simple it is. I'm saying interact using the function that considers the whole input, extracts line by line, or every line it applies reverse, then it just puts the output lines back together. Okay, this is how I write the program. But because of Haskell's laziness, it doesn't wait for you to provide the whole input. Let us see how it works. So let's come back here. Did I save it? Save it again. Let me reload it. Let me say rev each line. Okay. 1, 2. I pressed an enter, that is an empty line. So one thing is, when you do it inside GHCI, you need to figure out how exactly to signal end. Control D doesn't work. Control C doesn't work. Oh, Control C interrupted the whole thing and went out of GHCI itself. But if you are doing it, let's say, instead of calling it rev each line, you did instead of do. So let me say I comment out this main. And rev each line is my main, let us say. Okay, then I can compile. Then I can go here, compile the program. And then I can do ./left20. Okay, it is expecting me to enter lines 1, 2. See, it is doing line by line, even though the way I wrote was a very, very simple 1-line thing. Okay, so because every line, what has to be applied. So just write that function. It could be anything. It could, for instance, be your, if this will work provided your function is something that works line by line. It will read a line, do something on that line. That line need not just be a string. It could be an integer. So you will read line and parse it as an integer and do something on it. Okay. And yeah, so that's basically it. Okay. So this is all I had to tell about input output.
How to exit by the how to exit?
Yes. What?
How to exit that?
Control D, I said, on the Mac or a Linux. For Windows, you have to figure out how to do it. Yeah. For Windows, what is the equivalent of Control D? You have to check.
Sir, can you take the previous?
Can I?
Sir, can you take the previous slide?
Previous slide. Okay. Yes. Yeah, the nice thing is f is a pure function. This is the nice thing. F is just a function that maps whatever, a string to string. That's all. Okay, the string could be an integer, in which case you will do read ln IO. You will parse it as an integer and do something, etc. But f is a pure function. There is no IO, GIO, etc. Yes, Milan, you wanted
Okay,
to?
sir.
Yeah, can I go ahead? Okay. Yeah, right. Finally, you can, when you, so I've already shown you things inside GHCI, right? I've also shown you things outside GHCI by compiling and then doing it. Not always will you enter the input like this as a user. So you will enter input in a file and then you will read from the file, and maybe you will put the outputs not on the screen but into a file. Okay, and there are ways in Haskell for where you can explicitly open a file, etc., but we do not need all that. For the moment, all you need to know is that in Unix like operating systems, there is this thing called input output redirection. Okay, typically usual input is from standard input, which is the keyboard. Output is to what is called standard output, which is the screen, but you can read from any source. Okay, and that is done by saying input redirection, saying run my program, but let the input come from input file. Okay, less than says information flows from input file into my program, and greater than says information flows from my program not to the screen but to output file. Okay, and you can combine these two by saying my program input file output file. So for instance, this function that we had where every line is reversed, I could for instance do a go here, do a elect20.in. Okay, and I could just write stuff 1, 2, 3, 4 bytes. Let's say. Okay, now I can run this lect20 with input coming from lect20.in and output going to lect20.in. And now if you go and check what is in lect20.out, yeah, you will see that it is the reverse of all these lines. Whatever. Right? Okay, I think I'll stop with this. Yeah. So I'll tell the TAs that they can have a tutorial this weekend sometime. If you want, please ask them more questions. Next week when we meet, if you have more questions, please ask them. Okay. Any doubts regarding this? The slides are reasonably clear and comprehensive. Replicate M is the only extra thing I did, but I suppose that's easy for you to. That is the n times program in the original thing. Yeah, so I think I'll stop now unless you have questions, and we can meet next week. Okay. Have a nice weekend. Do you also? I would like to ask: do you find the screen better now, or do you want me to go back to the earlier dark background? I somehow thought that dark background and so on, it might be more difficult for you to read clearly. Yeah, you can. Okay, Control Z is end of file. Okay, yeah, on Windows. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So when you're creating files here,
Yeah.
you're putting dot whatever you want. So it doesn't, like usually files have an extension like docx or something.
No, 5.7.
So files have a file type at the end.
Right. Files have a file type like .exe, etc. in Windows. In the Unix convention is that if you give an extension, that is usually some kind of program file or this file or that file. But if you don't have any extension, that is an executable. That is the Unix convention.
So you're putting dot in and dot out, and that's not making any problems.
No, that is not creating any problem. No, dot in and dot out, I can choose any extension there I want. No, what's your
Okay.
question? What's your question?
So I'm saying that usually, I mean, extensions are used to show how some program reads the file.
How some program reads the file. In
So
what
like,
way?
a dot, like Word can't read .txt files, for example.
Right. I know. Okay, you're saying that. Okay, that is not the file extension, but the file type. Okay, when you create a file, you will have an extension, but you'll also have a file type that is part of the file. And Word cannot read Word cannot read Excel because of the format. But these are all text files. Okay, of course you cannot read this text file using some Adobe Acrobat or whatever.
Oh, yes.
Right? These are the file type is text. That's all. Okay. The file extension, I just gave it as in and out for me to think that it is meaningful. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The in and out makes sense for me. That is just for me to figure out what it means. Okay. Those are just plain text files. Okay.
So the programs don't need to look at the extension to figure out the type.
No.
like
Here it's all just text files. Here, my Haskell program is not even doing anything fancy. It can only look at text files. It can't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you look at my program, it is our program, right? What we wrote, not our program.
Yes,
It
sir.
just does reverse. It only can read strings. It can't read anything fancy, binary or whatever. Okay. It can't read any fancy formats or fancy file types. Okay. Then if there is no more question, then yeah, I'll stop now. I'll talk to the TAs if needed, or you can ask the TAs if you need a tutorial after this to just go over some of the material and go over some doubts, right? Over the weekend, sometime convenient for you. You just contact them at the earliest so that I can get a Zoom license for the time slot, etc. And otherwise, we can just meet next week. Okay. See you then. Yeah. Have a nice weekend. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.